All right. Good afternoon. Good morning. Let me just share my screen. There we go. Put you up here and present. And okie dokie. Well, good afternoon if you're here in the UK or Europe. Good morning if you're further west. Thank you for joining us today in this week's Koala Wednesday webinar. If this is the first of your Koala Wednesday webinars, we get together every Wednesday at this time, and it gives us an hour when we can talk about one kind of main topic, things that are going on in the world of AI. It is just such a fast-moving space that for anyone to keep on top of it, even those like us who are doing it 24/7, is difficult. And so this gives us an opportunity to talk about a specific topic, something that we're working on ourselves with our clients, and to pass that on to you, and hopefully in a way that you can turn that into something useful in your own organization and your own use of AI. Not only that, it gives an opportunity for us to catch up on what's going on in the AI world in the news as well. So we'll cover any model releases or updates that have happened in the last 7 days. And then you've also got the opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. Now, these could be about the topic that we're talking about today, when I'm going to talk about my Cowork setup. It could be about the AI in the news, but it could be anything. You might say, "Oh, Charlie, I'm trying to build this prompt, or I'm trying to build this skill," or "What's the difference between a skill and a prompt?" So any questions that you've got, feel free to ask them. We're in a Zoom webinar here. So what you're going to see is, depending on what device you're on, maybe at the top of your screen or the bottom, you're going to see that you've got a Q&A panel, which I shall open up on my other screen here so I can keep an eye on it. And then there's also a chat panel as well. So feel free to chat, and that will be visible to me as well. If I don't spot anything, Caitlin, my lovely colleague who's on moderating, will give me a poke and tell me that you've asked a question. Don't wait until the Q&A section. If I talk about something in the co-work section and you've got a question, then feel free to ask, and we can talk about it. So with that, let's dive into our main topic of the day, which is my Cowork setup. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with what Cowork is a relatively new feature that is part of the Claude platform. So Claude is an AI product from a company called Anthropic. If you've not heard of any of those names and you're familiar with ChatGPT, then Claude is an equivalent to ChatGPT, and it was set up by a group of people that used to work at Anthropic. And one of the reasons why Claude is getting so much press and traction at the moment in business is that their focus is 100% on business. It's enterprise workflows. It's the things that you and I are doing day in, day out. They are not going for the consumer adoption, which ChatGPT is having to play that game to compete with Google and Gemini, with creating sort of social networks and videos and nice book your holiday type activities. This is very much about working with workflows, with processes, with spreadsheets, and getting work done. Now, I'm always saying that I learned more in the last week than I have in the previous 18 months of working with AI. And that just happens every single week. It is compounding. It's just accelerating and accelerating and accelerating. And a couple of weekends ago, I really got into setting up my Cowork properly, having played with it for a couple of weeks. And I just felt we've got to jump on to this week's webinar and just show you that kind of level of thinking that has developed for me. And hopefully this can accelerate your own learning and use of it. So Cowork, like what is it? How do you get it? Where do you find it? If you've got a Claude account, and so this could be, you might be on a Claude Pro account, a Claude Max account, if you're an individual, or in our situation in Kowalah, we're part of a business, and so we're on a Claude Team account, or you might be on a Claude Enterprise account if you're on in a larger organization. And so Claude is about chat, just like ChatGPT. You go to it, you have a chat. But when you download the desktop version of Claude, and so what you're looking at on my screen here is the desktop version rather than it being in your browser. You're going to see up at the top of your screen these three options: chat, cowork, and code. So chat is what you're familiar with. I'm having a question. Claude comes back to me with an answer. Code, if you're a developer, you might have been using Claude Code, and so you can use that to write and update code for your applications. And it's this middle one that we're spending the time on today. And so what is Cowork and how is it different to chat? Well, chat is optimized for chat, answering a question. I'm going to ask you something, it's going to come back to me with chat. With Cowork, it's optimizing for performing a task and delivering something and going off and running for 10, 20 minutes and doing some work. So what I'm going to cover today is like my setup for getting Cowork to work so well for me that it really is like a partner that I'm working with. I'm going to touch on, to start with, the folder structure, the file structure that we allow Claude Cowork to work in. Then I'm going to talk about the connectors that I've connected Cowork up to and how that is valuable. Then I'm going to talk about Claude.md file, which sounds a bit technical, sounds a bit codey. Don't worry about it. It's just a memory file that teaches Claude about me and about the work that I'm doing and how to interact with me. Then I'm going to talk about the skills and plugins that I have created to allow Claude Cowork to perform various actions and tasks for me. And then we're going to wrap up looking at scheduled tasks, which is how do we get Claude to actually just do this stuff without me even having to do anything? The first thing I know is that I've just been slacked an update that is going on. So the folder structure, like why is this important? Why is this useful? And how has this accelerated my thinking? Well, agents, and in this case, Claude Cowork is acting as an agent. Agents love file structures. And so by this, I mean a folder. And in that folder is a set of files that contain information, text, CSVs, data. And Claude Cowork works best when it has got a folder to work on your laptop. So this is my setup. So what you can see is that I've got a folder that I've called Kowalah, and I've dragged this folder over to my iCloud. So actually I get to it right in the sidebar on my Mac. If you're in a Windows machine, you're going to have a similar kind of thing. But so the Kowalah folder you can think of as my entire sort of brain that relates to everything that's going on in the business. And this separates it from things like my photos, and maybe I've got family stuff and finance stuff. So it's this folder that is just about my work to do with Kowalah. Now, in that folder, I have split it up based on how I'm running the business. So my role is founder and CEO. So I'm at the top of the pyramid when it comes to thinking about the business. So I've got folders that relate to, well, one, the CEO, me, which is kind of my daily tracker and what's going on there. But then we've got a folder for clients. So we've got prospects that we're selling into, we've got existing clients, and within each of those, I've got subdirectories relating to each of those clients. Delivery, how we actually manage our projects here at Kowalah. Go to market, and within this, I think I've got a breaking out of this here. So you can see in go to market, I've got marketing, I've got sales, we've got partnerships, speaking engagements. And within marketing, that breaks down even further. Blogs, branding, different campaigns that we're working on, lead magnets, the webinars, just everything that is relating to the work that we are doing here. Now, this is kind of, it grows and it develops. One of the beautiful things about Claude Cowork is it is able to create, edit, move, and when I give it permission, delete folders and files in this structure. And so whilst you might look at this and go, oh my God, Charlie, have I got to just like map out this whole tree before I even get started? Absolutely not. Claude Cowork is going to do that for you. What you want to do to set it up is just come up with this high level structure that kind of reflects like how your brain works and how you see your view of the world. So just like here's some examples, and don't take this as like, you know, the rule, but just to give you a thinking about how you might structure yours. So if you were in a sales role, and so maybe you're a VP of sales, maybe you're a chief revenue officer, maybe you're an AE that's selling directly yourself, you might set up a structure like this. So you might have a top level or Claude.md. I'm going to show you this in a minute. You might have a subdirectory for deals that you're working on. You might have a subdirectory for prospects. You might have one for existing customers. You might have one for playbooks, like how you sell, your methodology. You might have one for your forecasts and updates. That might be the mental model about how you work. If you're running marketing, maybe you're a chief marketing officer or a marketing director or you're a marketing associate. You might split it up depending on how you structure your marketing. So that might be campaigns. You might be working on content. You might be working on events. You can structure this however your sort of mental model would be to work. And within each of those, you're obviously going to have subdirectories and folders. If you're in a CXO type role, like the example I showed you for me, you might split it out like on the right here: strategy, clients, the people, finance and fundraising, operations, legal, whatever it might be. So you don't have to overthink this. But the reason why this is important, and this was one of the biggest level ups for me in my use of Cowork, was to go, right, Claude Cowork is really good at navigating folders and these kind of structures. And so why not give it the way that you think about your world? Because then when you're talking to Cowork in the future, you're going to be saying to it, you know, go to my strategy directory. You're going to find my playing to win strategy in there. Go to the people directory and you're going to find our hiring plan. This is the mental model that you've got, and you can point Claude Cowork in the same direction. With that in mind, one of the common questions that then comes up with a lot of people when I'm helping them get started is, okay, Charlie, I've spent the last 20 years putting all of my files and folders in Google Drive or maybe in SharePoint. So all of my files and folders are there and I can share them with the rest of my team. We share them with clients. Like that is where all of our documents are. Is this to replace that? And I'll give you two answers to that. So one, no, it's not to replace it. The actual working documents that you are sharing with your team, you're sharing with your customer, sharing with prospects, these are the ones that are going to stay in your Google Drive, and you're sharing them and you're collaborating on them as you would normally with a Google Doc or a Google Sheet. What's really going into your Cowork directory, you could think of as more of memory. It is more like work trackers. It is a running sort of total of what's going on. And I'll show you some examples of these. Yes, I am creating proposals using Cowork, but having created that proposal in Cowork, I'm then copying that into Google Docs, which is where I'm sharing that proposal with my client. Yes, I'm working on a subcontractor agreement in Cowork, and having agreed that subcontractor agreement, I'm then putting it into Google Docs, which is where I'm sharing it with the subcontractor. So these are two different things. So that's my first part of the answer, is that they're different. The second part of the answer is this is not going to be the end destination. We know that the vendors, and by this I mean Claude, Anthropic, we know that ChatGPT and OpenAI are looking at this. We know that Google are very much working on this, which is it cannot be that the future or the final destination is everyone starts having local only files on their laptop after 20 years of putting them into the cloud. But agents love local directories. And so this is where we are at the moment. For Cowork to work really well, you're going to give it access to local files. But I would very much expect to see new kind of connectors and synchronizing that allows you to work on these either locally on your laptop or to have a similar structure like this that Claude Cowork can navigate around that is in your Google Drive or SharePoint. So keep your eyes peeled to that and we'll keep you up to date on it. So then the next thing for me with setting up my Cowork, having got the folder directory set up, is to give it what I call eyes, ears, and hands. If you were employing someone to do a certain job, you would give them on their first day access to systems. Oh, welcome to Kowalah. Right, here's your Google Workspace. So now you've got Gmail, you've now got Google Chat, you've got Google Drive. Oh, now I'm going to give you access to Granola. So you've got call transcripts. And now I'm going to give you access to our CRM system, which is HubSpot. Now I'm going to give you access to DocuSign, which is where we sign all our contracts. You'd give them access to all of these systems so that they can not only see things, but they can do things. And this is where these connectors come in. So I'm just going to show you a few things here. I'll nip over to my my actual Cowork. So firstly, we talked about setting up the folder. And why is the folder on your laptop important? Well, it's important because Cowork wants to work in a folder. So I'm going to go, right, work in a folder. And here is my Kowalah folder. Users, Charlie Cowan, Documents, Kowalah. That is the folder that I showed you there. And I'm always working in that one primarily. Then we've got our connectors here. So I'm going to click on Manage Connectors. And you're going to see all of the ones that I've got turned on here. And if I click on the plus and go to Browse Connectors, you're going to be able to see all of these different connectors that are available. And this is one of the reasons why we talk about Anthropic being so focused on business. You're going to see a lot of business applications here. NetSuite. You're going to see Snowflake in here. You're going to see a lot of the tools that you are using to run your business. And there's a lot of pre-built connectors that are in here already. Now, if you've got things that you use that are not in here, you might want to get your friendly IT department to create a custom connector. And so some common ones that we see that don't have pre-built connectors today are things like Salesforce. So there is not a pre-built connector for Salesforce right now. There is one for Slack, but not for core Salesforce. Things like Gong, which you might be using for your call recordings and transcripts. Things like Workday, if you're working on it from an HR or financial planning perspective, no pre-built connectors there. So it is possible to build a custom connector. It is not something that a non-technical person is going to do. But the general guidance I would give you is that if we go over here, let me go over here. If your tool that you're using has got an API, then we can, or your IT team can build a connector to be able to access that in your Cowork. So I'd really encourage you to think about the tools and applications that you would give a human to do their job and make sure that you're giving Cowork access to those things as well. Now, there's three things that these are good for, these connectors. One is for awareness. And in the demo that I'm going to show you in a minute, I'll show you why that is. So think about you doing your job. Well, you've got visibility of your calendar. You know what you did last week. You know what you're doing next week. Visibility of your email. You know what emails you sent. You know what emails you've received. Call transcripts through something like Granola. You know exactly what calls you were on. And so we're all about giving that visibility, the awareness so that Cowork can actually help you. Next up is about taking action with these connectors. So not only can these connectors read, but they can write as well. So I'm going to show you an example a little bit later on where I've got plugins that give me a Slack update at 8 o'clock every morning, giving me a forecast report. They're giving me my actions for the day. We've got an AE plugin that can draft emails for me to send out of my email. So these connectors are about taking action, not just about reading things. And then finally, it's about giving that access to data in real time so that these plugins that we're going to create can take action using real-time data. So that might be, like we talked about from Salesforce, there is a pre-built plugin to HubSpot, which is what we use as our CRM. There are connectors into finance systems like Xero, which is what we use for our finance, into HR. And this means that when we're using Cowork, it is pulling in the real data and is actually able to do the job that I would do. So we've talked about files and your folder structure, and we've talked about connectors to make sure that Claude Cowork has got access to everything that you would want. Next up, if I go back to my Claude here, my Cowork, and I'm going to, let me just say, hey, Claude, can you help me plan for an upcoming webinar in a couple of weeks? Just going to kick off a task just so that you can see the next page. Now, when you're working in Cowork, you get these extra items on the right-hand side, a task list, and then this is the working directory that we are in. And I wanted to get to this page because I wanted to show you this instructions or this Claude.md file. So I'm going to click on this. Now, if you remember, if I go back to my screen here and my slide deck, and I'm going to go back to what I was showing you right at the start. So in my folder structure, I've got a Kowalah is the overall folder. And at the root of that, like not buried in one of the subdirectories, we have what's called a Claude.md file, Claude.md file. And if I come back to my Claude, this is what we're looking at. So we're in the Kowalah directory and we've got a Claude.md file is at the root of that. And this is just a text file that I created with the help of Claude, obviously, and we keep up to date. And it basically just teaches Claude about everything that's going on in this Kowalah folder. So it is my CEO operating system. This is Charlie Cowan's central workspace for running Kowalah. It contains strategy, client work, go-to-market, operations, product, finance, and so on. It is not a code repository. I do run a number of other code repositories, and so we're just telling Claude that this isn't that. These are these other repositories where the code for the applications and the website are. This workspace is for strategic planning, client delivery, and business operations. Your role, you are Charlie's AI chief of staff and coach. Be direct, challenge assumptions, and use proven frameworks. Don't be deferential, be useful. I said I don't want a sycophant. I don't want someone that just tells me that I'm amazing. I want someone that's going to act as a mentor and a coach and push back on me. And so this is why I've got it structured like this. Communication style, I follow a thing called Smart Brevity, which is a fantastic book that I recommend about how to communicate well in business. Some default frameworks that I like using. I like using Playing to Win, which is another great book. When it comes to marketing and positioning, obviously awesome, a great framework. When I'm asking for coaching or giving coaching, The Coaching Habit, another good book. And then when we're doing our forecasting, we're using John McMahon's The Qualified Sales Leader. And for communication, Smart Brevity. So I'm just teaching Claude. These are the kind of frameworks. These are the mental models that I like using, and it can use it in its work with me. The high level structure Of course, Claude can know this and navigate it, but it's useful for it to know exactly what sits where. And it's all about helping Claude without it. If I can point it in the right direction, then let's point Claude in the right direction nice and easily. So we keep this up to date. And when I say we, I mean Claude. So Claude keeps it up to date. Client memory banks. Each client folder has its own Claude.md at its root. And this is the memory bank that when you're starting to work on any client, read their Claude.md first. And after calls, meetings, or significant interactions, update their own Claude.md with new context. When creating a new client folder, copy the template of the clients and populate it. And this is what a client folder structure might look like. The clients, the client name, its own Claude.md, and then it might have proposals, anything else. So we're just teaching Claude that as we work together, if I come up with, starting a new client project at acme.com, then this is what I want you to do. Create a new client directory for Acme, set it up in this way, create a Claude.md memory file, and this is how the thing continues to get better and better as we use it. So there's a few more bits and pieces here. Yeah, when to create a new Claude.md, different systems that we're using, HubSpot, Xero, Linear. So I think about this Claude.md at the root of our project, a little bit like an onboarding guide for a new employee. So imagine I had hired in a new starter. I'd probably give them an onboarding handbook that would explain this kind of stuff. So we put this into the root of the project, this Claude.md, and it means that every time Claude is working in this folder, it's got this knowledge to work on. So that is what a Claude.md is. I reiterate, I did not write this. I had Claude interview me and I told it a little bit about what I wanted and it wrote it because it's able to navigate the structure and know what we want in here. So that's the Claude.md. And as I alluded to there, you can have them at multiple levels of the project. So if I go over here, and let me just make this a little bit bigger here. So here is the Claude.md in our Kowalah file or folder. And then here we are in marketing. I've got another Claude.md, which is at the root of the marketing directory. And I don't know the number, maybe across my whole directory, maybe there are 50 Claude.mds. And the way that it works is that wherever Claude is working, if we're doing some work on, let's say, our messaging framework in this file here, then it will look up at what's the nearest Claude.md that I've got access to. Here is the marketing one. And this Claude.md describes all about how we do marketing, how we create our brand guidelines, what our brand colors and our style guide are. And it's specific about that. And so when we're working on something in a specific area, it references that Claude.md and then may go up further up to the main one. But so this scattering around is really, really helpful. And of course, I don't create these. Claude does. I just say, can you create a new Claude.md for marketing that focuses on our brand guidelines and style guide and so on. Okay, so we've looked at files and folder structure. We've looked at connectors and we've looked at Claude.md to basically teach Claude what we're doing and what the purpose is. Now we're going to look at how we show Claude how to do the work that we want to do. So if you've been on previous Wednesday webinars, we've talked about skills and the importance of a skill and what a skill is in Claude. I'm not going to go into detail about that again. You can take a look at our previous webinars on the Wednesday webinar page, and you can see our webinars on Claude skills. But in short, a skill is a way of doing something. So here's how we plan a call with an upcoming prospect meeting. Here's how we run an interview for hiring a new candidate. Here's how we build a forecast so that we can present it to the board. So these are just ways of doing something and they are written down and we give them to Claude so that Claude can use them to do those things on our behalf. Now, what I've really unlocked in the last couple of weeks is taking these skills and wrapping them in a thing called a plugin, which is something that comes as part of Cowork. And so, how do I think about these plugins? Well, if a skill is how to do something, I think of a plugin as who does that thing. Um, Now, not just the role, but I'm often giving these things the name of a person that I've worked with in the past that does that thing. And so I'm going to show you an example of that in a minute. But a plugin can include one or more skills, and typically my plugins have got at least two skills in them. And they can also include an agent. And an agent is a sort of specific subtask that you might delegate off to something else. And I'm going to show you an example of that in a minute. But a plugin you can think of as a person, as a role, as an individual, and it's got access to two or three of these things that they can do and get work done. So what does this look like in my cowork now that I've gone plug-in crazy? Well, here's me using my cowork as a human, and then one of my plugins is Rosalie, and Rosalie is my executive assistant. Now, not a human executive assistant, a cowork executive assistant. And Rosalie has a couple of skills. I'll show you in a minute. She is able to update me every morning on what is on my task list, what is important for me to work on, and is able to add things to my, to my to-do tracker. So she keeps me honest and keeps me on top of things. Then I've got John. He's the Chief Revenue Officer, and he looks at our forecast in HubSpot, looks at our emails, our call transcripts, and he every day updates our forecast so we know what is going on there. I've got Mark, our CFO. He is plugged into Zero, which is our finance system. He's also plugged into HubSpot to see what deals are coming. And I go to Mark to ask questions about hiring, about the economics of a specific deal we're about to close, and working out whether we're on track to meet our specific financial goals. I've got Kim, our Chief People Officer, who's helping me along with hiring, but also how we build out all of our management and goal setting for all of the humans that we have in our team. And then we go down a level and we've got a number of individual agents that are doing specific tasks, either for me or for others in the Kowalah organization, whether that might be on the marketing side of the demand gen, whether it is processing and managing our opportunities in our pipeline as an AE, or actually on the delivery side of things and managing our projects and managing our team. So over the last 3 weeks, I really have built out this kind of digital team that complements our human team. So what do one of those look like? Charlie, what is one of these plugins? Well, let me show you Brian, who acts as our AE to support me. Let me go in here. I'm going to go to customize, and I'm going to go down here to Brian. Now, Brian acts as an AE, a salesperson. Now, he's not actually doing the meetings, doing the calls. That is me. We're in founder sales mode. I am the lead salesperson at Kowalah, and I manage all of those interactions with our clients. But having immediately had a meeting, then there is a lot of admin that needs to happen. I need to create a proposal. I need to update HubSpot. I need to create a client record. I need to create a deal. I need to update a forecast. I need to set up upcoming meetings. All of this kind of stuff that takes a salesperson away from being in front of a customer. And it's well known that salespeople spend anything as much as 80 or 90% of their time on non-customer facing activities. And so what I've got Brian to do is basically to see, as it says here, my tactical sales wingman. Brian handles all of the deal level operations. And I've given Brian two skills. So one of them is doing a daily scan of all of our deal activity and making sure that HubSpot is up to date and tidy and clean, and that I'm on top of things. So let me just show you quickly. He does a daily deal sweep. This is one of his skills. And if I click on the skill.md, you can see a little bit about what Brian does. So his workflow, number one, so this happens every morning, scanning HubSpot. It goes and looks at HubSpot at all of our deals, checks the next step, when the notes were last updated, the forecast category, and so on. He then goes and scans Granola. So Granola is our call transcription tool. If you were on our Wednesday webinar 3 weeks ago, I think, maybe 2 weeks ago, we did some lovely demos of Granola. But so Brian every morning goes and looks at Granola and looks at all of yesterday's Granola meetings. What calls were I in, and what actions and what came out of those. Thirdly, Brian goes and scans my Gmail, goes and has a look at all of the emails that I've received or sent. And so this is about just acquiring all of this information about what has happened and what is different to the day before. Then what Brian does is for each active deal, combine data from these 3 scans and basically work out what he needs to do. Check staleness against these thresholds. Do I need to update these things? Is the deal health correct or not? Do I need to create new deals? If I had meetings yesterday, but I've not updated HubSpot, then go and create HubSpot. Create the company, create the contacts, create the deal, create a client folder on my local laptop, just like we talked about. Create the client folder, create a client template, create the Claude.md file, and fill it up with all of this information. And then Brian has a Brian tracker in my local directory. And so Brian checks that and updates it. And so every day Brian's doing this, and it's just keeping us on top of everything that is going on with our deals. The second skill that Brian has got access to is just a deal processing. So I might have come off a call and I just say, right, Brian, I've just come off this call. Can you go and do this for this one deal? So we've got these two kind of flows. One is me initiating it through the deal processing, and the other is Brian initiating it, just doing it automatically each morning. I mentioned that these plugins, they can have skills, they can also have agents. And you might have just seen that on some of the previous screens. I've given Brian a number of different agents. So a Gmail scanner, a Granola scanner, and a HubSpot scanner. And the reason for having these agents are that they can all go off and run in parallel. So when Brian's working in the morning, he's scanning my Gmail, scanning my Granola, scanning HubSpot at the same time. And each of these things uses their own context. They can use their own model. So we're just using a very low cost model from Claude here. So this is probably the only sort of technical bit here, but this really makes Brian a lot more efficient in terms of his usage. Okay, good question in here from McVal. Thank you very much. How do you keep track of versions on the custom skills? Does it keep track of versions itself? So yes, it does. And I don't know if it shows it here. Oh yeah, here we got a version 2.0. We use some pre-built skills that are in Claude to actually build these skills. And one of those, one of the instructions in that is to update the versions. And so it will keep updating as I build either new versions of the skill or new versions of the plugins. Thank you. Good question. So that's my Brian. And let me go back to my slides here. Present. There we go. And so how Brian works is to pull in all of this information from the left. And so this is why it's so important in the setup to have all of your connectors. Like if you don't give Brian access to the tool that you would use to get this information, then how's Brian going to be able to do a good job? He's not. This is why it's so important to have your folder directory set up correctly. Because if Brian can't access what he did yesterday and what the information about the client, he's not going to be able to do a good job. So the setup is important. Then Brian does that thinking in the middle, and then Brian is able to take action and then push information out. So, like we saw in that example, he's able to create new records in HubSpot. He's able to Slack me, which he does every single morning at about 8:05, and with all of the updates. And he's able to create and edit files that are in my local directory, so that we've got an up-to-date track of what's going on, and it's not out of date. So then the final bit, which I've alluded to there, is getting these agents like Brian to work autonomously. And this was just launched about 10 days ago, is scheduled tasks in Claude Cowork. So let me go to scheduled here. So again, we're in Cowork and I'm clicking on the scheduled here, and you can see all of the scheduled tasks that I have got. So I've got John McMahon. He is our Chief Revenue Officer. Every weekday at 8:04, he looks at the forecast by looking in HubSpot, by looking in his own files in my directory at what the forecast was yesterday, what our targets are, our quota. And then he sends me a Slack message to tell me off about how we need more pipeline in order to hit our quotas. So that's his job, is just keep me honest with the forecast and what we need to do. Rosalie is my executive assistant. She looks through everything that I did yesterday, everything that I promised people that I would do, everything that I have not done, and she tells me off at 8 o'clock in the morning about what I need to do. And so that's super useful for me to know exactly what I need to focus on at that day. Mark is the CFO. Now, I don't need a financial forecast every single day. So on the first of the month, Mark runs, and he looks at Xero, our accounting system. He's able to look at invoices, a P&L, a balance sheet. He looks at our hiring plans. He looks at everything that's going on and is able to give me an updated cash flow forecast and whether we want to readjust our hiring plan. We've got Deirdre. Deirdre is our resource manager, and she is looking at the start of every week at all of the deals that have closed, at the projects that are ongoing, at the people that we have available. And she's helping me to assess our capacity plan and whether we need to hire more people or not. And then we've got Brian's daily sweep, like we talked about. Brian, our AE, is running this at 7:32. Why 7:32, Charlie? Well, at 8:04, the CRO is going to get on my back about the pipeline and the forecast. And so Brian needs to make sure that our pipeline is up to date and HubSpot is clean before McMahon goes in and tells us off for having a shoddy CRM. So these are the instructions for Brian's daily sweep. It is going to run on weekdays at 7:32, so we don't need it at the weekend. It is running in this folder, and this is why our folder structure is so important. It is allowed to use certain tools. It can send me a Slack message. And then the instructions: run Brian's daily deal sweep using the daily deal sweep skill. This is the 7:30 autonomous sweep. Work silently, no conversation, no questions. Scan all active deals. Create deals for any unmatched sales meetings. Update HubSpot. And post any exception alerts if there's anything wrong to the Brian Slack channel, if anything needs Charlie's attention. So when the Brian Slack channel pings me, then I know I need to get on top of it. Here's a bit of context and blah, 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 blah. So that is the Brian daily sweep. And you can see it ran this morning at 7:32. I won't show you that because it's got client information in it. But just know that that is exactly how that happens. And so in my Slack, which again I can't show you because it's just littered with client information, I've got a Brian channel, I've got a John McMahon channel, I've got a Rosalie channel, I've got a Deirdre channel, and these things are being populated automatically every morning to tell me like what we need to focus on. And now that I'm getting more trust in these agents, I'm now opening up those channels to other people in our company, and other people are able to get updates about what's going on with the forecast and various deals and so on. Let me just go back to my slides here. And how can you start to get started here? As I think you can tell, I mean, I'm always excited on these Wednesday webinars, but this, I'm like really excited. And like when I was playing with this a couple of Saturdays ago, I had my like holy moly moment where I'm like, oh my goodness, like my belief of what is possible with these tools is just accelerating at such a rapid rate. So go into your Cowork. What you're going to find is that there is an ideas tab. And if you click on that, it's going to give you some ideas about how you can get started. Based on the connectors that you've already set up, it's going to suggest some potential plugins. It's going to give you a few tips and tricks to get going. So play around with that. The next thing that I would point you to is we've built a plugin that helps you to set up your Cowork, Workspace, workflows, skills, and plugins. And so this is going to help you get from 0 to 1 if all that I've shown you there is very, very confusing. So we'll share the link in the follow-up email, but you're basically going to go to Kowalah.com and then resources, and you're going to find this. Let me just go to Kowalah.com. Here we are in Kowalah, resources, Concierge plugin is where you're going to get to this page. And all you're going to do is click download plugin, which I'm going to do there. And it's going to give you Kowalah Concierge as a zip file. Once you've got that, you're going to go to your Cowork. You're going to go to customize, and you are going to go to plugins, personal plugins. You're going to click plus, upload plugin, and then you're going to browse for that zip file that I've just given you. And suddenly you're going to have your Kowalah Concierge plugin in your Cowork. And it comes with these 5 built-in skills. And the first one that I'm going to ask you to use is this setup coach. So you're just going to say to your Cowork, hey, Claude, can I use the Kowalah setup coach, or can I use the setup coach to set up my Cowork environment? And this will teach Claude how to set up your file directory, your folder directory, like we talked about. And I've loaded it up with loads of different templates. So depending on whether you are the CEO, whether you are the CFO, whether you are the COO, and so on, it's going to teach Claude about how to set that thing up. So this is your cheat code for getting Cowork up and running super, super quickly. So good luck with that. If you have any challenges, just let us know. We'll help you get that installed and set up. All right, so we've got about 10 minutes left for AI in the news and any Q&A. So do log any questions if you've got any. This week has been a little bit lighter on the AI in the news. There have been sort of releases and developments, but I see our role here is really to filter this down to the things that are useful for you. I'm not going to talk about every single new model or something that's very specific to developers. Our focus here is really on business use cases. And the one thing that I did want to talk about is that Anthropic have made their 1 million context models generally available in certain surfaces. And by surface, I mean ways that you can interact with Claude. And so primarily, their 1 million context model has been made available in Claude Code, which is for developers. But it's also available in Claude Cowork, as we're seeing here. What is 1 million context, and why is that important? Well, think about a human. You have just hired someone into your company, and you're going to give them a task to work on. Maybe you say to them, right, I want you to help us to review our customer contracts and find out if there are opportunities for us to sort of renew or enhance those contracts, as an example. Well, what you could do, you could say, right, here are three or four examples of a contract to start work on. Go away, and when you've done those, come back to me, and I'll give you some more. As a human, that is processable. That's all right to go and work on. Now imagine that I said, right, I want you to manage these contracts. Here are 10,000 contracts. I want you to read them all, and then I want you to start work. Well, as a human, you go, there's just no way I can read all of that and keep it in my brain and being able to be effective. And that's your context window. You just can't keep it all in mind at once. And these models are exactly the same. So up until now, Anthropic's models have mainly had a 200,000 token context window. And that means that if you're loading it up with some really heavy stuff, maybe that's lots and lots of code, maybe it's a very long conversation, maybe it's a really complex set of Excel tables, maybe it's lots of images. Well, then it hits its context window and it's unable to process that anymore. So with 1 million context, and of course that's a massive 5 times increase, it means that you're able to have much longer conversations. You're able to give the model way more in your conversation, and you're just going to be a lot more effective. It's able to hold that in its memory. And so what does that mean? Well, some kind of numbers that you can keep a hold of. Like processing up to 600 images in one go or 600 PDF pages in one go. We're talking about full books that can be included in a single chat here. And when we think about co-work and the types of things that you might be doing, well, this is just going to enable you to have much richer and more complex conversations with Claude in this way. That is the most important updates that I would say out of this week. And we'll do some more AI in the news next week. So I don't see any other questions that have come through, and that's absolutely fine. Next week, we are going to be diving in a little bit more into some kind of live show and tell. As we've been having conversations with customers and showing them co-work and showing them Brian and Rosalie and John McMahon, the question then comes, how do I build one myself? Like you've shown me the end result, but how do we go and build one? So what I'm going to do in next week's Wednesday webinar, I'm going to build one from scratch. Obviously, we're going to use Cowork to do that, but we're also going to use a skill or a plugin that we've created called Agent Builder. And so we're going to go through the process of me being interviewed about the type of role, the skills this agent needs to have, and we're going to build it live, and we're going to start using it live. So you're going to be able to see over the course of probably about 30-40 minutes that start to live process. So same time next week, 3 p.m. UK time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And oh yes, because some time differences, I think. So we'll need to keep an eye on that. But you can register on the same QR code and we will see you there. So with that, thanks very much. Have a great week.